That can't be right. Are you absolutely sure?
That will be all. You're dismissed.
Your performance this quarter is unacceptable, Marcus. I don't care about the excuses. Consider this your final warning.
The conference room smelled like burnt coffee and lemon wipes, the kind of clean that tried too hard to erase what lingered underneath. Marcus Reed sat straight back at the long glass table, hands folded, eyes steady. Across from him, Evan Whitmore didn't bother to look up from his tablet. The silence dragged. A wall screen glowed with quarterly numbers Marcus had helped deliver. His name wasn't on the slide. It never was. Evan sighed, sharp and theatrical, then finally raised his head. His smile was thin, practiced. "We need to talk about your attitude." Marcus felt it before he understood it. The tightening in his chest, the heat in his ears. He had learned the rules early. Stay calm. Don't flinch. Don't give them anything they could twist. "My attitude?" Marcus asked quietly. Evan leaned back, folding his arms. "You're not a cultural fit. You push too hard. You make people uncomfortable." Uncomfortable. The word landed heavy. Marcus glanced toward the door. No one else was there. HR had declined the meeting. Again. Evan tapped the table once, decisive. "Honestly, you should be grateful you even got this far." The room seemed to tilt. Marcus heard the hum of the lights, the distant laughter from another team celebrating something upstairs. He stood slowly, heart pounding. "Are you saying I didn't earn my position?" Evan finally met his eyes. "I'm saying you should know your place." The words sliced clean. Marcus walked out without another word, his phone buzzing in his pocket as if it already knew what was coming. Down the hall, his screen lit up with a single incoming call. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Marcus Reed arrived early because that was safer. Early meant fewer eyes, fewer chances for someone to mistake confidence for arrogance. He placed his bag beneath his desk, aligned his chair, powered on his computer. The office hummed awake around him, fluorescent lights flickering like they hadn't fully committed. "Morning, Marcus," someone said without stopping. "Morning," he replied, voice even. By 10 a.m., the meeting invite appeared, mandatory. Executive review, conference room B. No agenda. Evan's name sat at the top like a signature. Marcus exhaled slowly and gathered his notes. Conference room B had glass walls, a design meant to suggest transparency. Inside, it did the opposite. Evan Whitmore stood at the head of the table, jacket draped over a chair, tablet in hand. He didn't look up when Marcus entered. "Have a seat," Evan said. Marcus sat. Minutes passed. Evan scrolled, frowned, tapped. Marcus kept his hands folded, posture neutral. He had learned how quickly calm could be rebranded as defiance. Finally, Evan sighed. "Let's cut to it." "Okay," Marcus said. Evan glanced up, eyes cool. "You've been difficult lately." Marcus blinked once. "Can you clarify?" "You question decisions. You don't stay in your lane." "My lane?" Marcus asked carefully. Evan smiled tight. "You know what I mean." The words settled heavy between them. Marcus pictured the numbers he delivered, the late nights, the weekends. He pictured his name missing from slides, his ideas rephrased in someone else's voice. "I've raised concerns when I saw risks," Marcus said. "That's part of my role." Evan leaned back. "Your role is to execute, not challenge leadership." Silence pressed in. Marcus nodded slowly, respectfully, pushing back his improved outcomes. Evan's smile vanished. This is exactly the problem. He stood, pacing once. You come off as aggressive. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. I disagree. There it is. Evan said, defensive. I'm responding, Marcus said. There's a difference. Evan stopped pacing. His voice dropped. You should be grateful you even got this opportunity. Marcus's chest tightened. I earned my position. Evan laughed, short and sharp. Let's be realistic. The hum of the lights grew louder. Marcus stared at the table, then up at Evan. What are you saying? I'm saying, Evan replied, that you do well to remember your place here. The sentence landed like a verdict. Marcus stood slowly. His hands shook, but his voice didn't. If this is about performance, I'd like HR present. Evan waved a hand. HR agrees with me. Did they review my file? Marcus asked. Evan shrugged. Enough. Marcus nodded once. Then I like that in writing. Evan's eyes narrowed. Careful. With what? Marcus asked. With burning bridges. Marcus picked up his notebook. I think some bridges deserve light. He walked out, heart hammering. Conversations hushed as he passed. At his desk, he packed his bag with deliberate calm. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Unknown number. He stared at the screen, then answered. Marcus Reed? A voice asked. Yes. This is Daniel Carter. We need to talk. Today. Marcus closed his eyes. Okay, he said. And for the first time, he didn't feel alone. Marcus sat in his car long after the engine cooled, hands resting on the steering wheel like he needed permission to let go. The office building loomed behind him, glass reflecting a sky that had gone dull and gray. He replayed Evan's voice, know your place, until the words lost meaning and became a low, persistent hum. His phone buzzed again. Naomi, he answered without greeting. I'm outside work. I know, his sister said. Her voice was calm, grounded. Your location hasn't moved in 20 minutes. Marcus let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Guess I needed a minute. You don't need a minute, Naomi replied. You need to come home. Her apartment smelled like ginger tea and lemon cleaner. Naomi handed him a mug before he even sat down. She didn't rush him. She never did. So, she said finally, folding her legs beneath her on the couch. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning, not just today. Marcus stared into the tea. Steam curled upward, soft and fleeting. It didn't start today, he said quietly. That's the problem. Naomi nodded. Then let's map it. He pulled his laptop from his bag, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The screen lit the room in cool blue. There were the performance reviews. Marcus said, always good, never great, strong contributor, solid, never excellent. Despite results? Despite results, he confirmed. Then the feedback changed. Tone, presence, communication style. Naomi's jaw tightened. Coded language. Exactly. Marcus opened a folder. I saved everything. Emails, Slack messages, meeting notes. Naomi leaned forward. You weren't sure you'd need it. I wasn't sure I'd survive without it. They went through the files slowly. An email praising Marcus's initiative, sent privately. A week later, a public meeting where Evan dismissed the same idea as overreaching. A project Marcus led successfully, later reassigned for better alignment. Naomi shook her head. This is a pattern. Marcus swallowed. I kept telling myself it was just corporate nonsense. Politics. Because that was safer, she said gently. He nodded. Because if I called it what it was, I'd have to do something about it. Naomi closed the laptop. You still do. Marcus looked away. HR won't help. Did you try? Yes, he said. Twice. Once informally. Once in writing. He pulled up another email. The response was brief, polite, empty. Thank you for raising your concerns. After review, we found no policy violations. No review, Naomi said flatly. Just protection. Marcus leaned back, rubbing his eyes. Evan's been here 15 years. He's a revenue machine. I'm replaceable. Stop, Naomi said sharply. You are not replaceable. In that building? Marcus asked. I am. Silence settled between them. Outside, a siren wailed and faded. So what happens now? Naomi asked. Marcus hesitated. A man named Daniel Carter called me today. Compliance attorney. Former mentor. Naomi's eyes sharpened. And he said we need to talk. Today. He sounded careful. That's not nothing, she said. That's someone choosing their words. Marcus nodded. He said not to delete anything, to back everything up. Did you? I'm doing it now. He connected a hard drive, files transferring with soft clicks. Each progress bar felt like proof, small, undeniable. What are you afraid of? Naomi asked. Marcus didn't answer right away. He watched the files move, years of his work distilled into data. I'm afraid they'll say I'm imagining it, he said finally, that I'm angry, that I'm misunderstood. And if they do, then I become the problem, Marcus said. Officially, Naomi stood and placed a hand on his shoulder. You've already been the problem to them. Just quietly. Marcus looked up at her. What did this cost me my career? She met his gaze. What does staying silent cost you? The transfer completed. Marcus ejected the drive, holding it like something fragile. His phone buzzed again. Daniel Carter. Marcus answered. I'm ready. Daniel's voice came through steady, low. Good. Because once we start, there's no pretending this is a misunderstanding. Marcus closed his eyes. What is it then? A record, Daniel said. And records have consequences. Marcus glanced at Naomi. She nodded, resolute. Okay, Marcus said. Tell me what to do next. First, Daniel replied, you stop thinking this is just about you. The line went quiet for a beat. Because it never is. Marcus ended the call slowly. He didn't feel brave. He felt exposed. But beneath the fear, something steadier took shape. Not hope, not yet, but clarity. He backed up the files again. And for the first time, he labeled the folder plainly. Human resources occupied the quietest floor of the building, where the carpet was thicker and the voices softer, as if discomfort might bruise easily. Marcus arrived 5 minutes early and sat alone, hands clasped, eyes fixed on a framed poster that read, "We value integrity." The irony didn't escape him. The door opened. Karen Holt, senior HR manager, stepped in with a polite smile that never reached her eyes. Marcus, she said, extending a hand. Thank you for coming. Thank you for meeting, he replied, standing. Behind her, Evan Whitmore entered, jacket crisp, expression relaxed. He didn't acknowledge Marcus directly, only nodded as if to a colleague he barely noticed. Karen gestured to the table. Let's all take a seat. They sat. Karen folded her hands. This meeting is to address concerns raised regarding workplace conduct. Marcus waited. Karen turned to Evan. Evan, would you like to begin? Evan sighed, the sound practiced. This is unfortunate, he said. I've always supported Marcus. But lately, his behavior has become disruptive. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Disruptive how? Evan glanced at Karen, then back. Challenging leadership in public forums. Creating tension. Making others uncomfortable. Karen nodded, typing. Can you give examples? Yes, Evan said smoothly. Last quarter, during the budget review, Marcus questioned a strategic decision in front of the entire team. Marcus leaned forward. I asked for clarification on projected risks. And your tone, Evan asked, how did that land? It was professional, Marcus said. Evan tilted his head. Intent versus impact. Karen typed faster. Marcus, can you respond to the perception that your communication style may be perceived as aggressive? Marcus stared at her. Perceived by whom? Karen paused. Multiple parties. Can you name them? Marcus asked. Karen smiled thinly. Confidentiality prevents that. Marcus nodded once. Then I'll speak to facts. My performance reviews are positive. My projects met targets. My feedback was framed around results. Evan chuckled softly. That's your interpretation. What's yours? Marcus asked. That you don't know when to stay in your lane, Evan replied. The room tightened. Karen cleared her throat. Let's remain respectful. Marcus turned to her. I requested HR presence in prior meetings. It was declined. Karen looked uncomfortable. Scheduling conflicts. Twice. Marcus asked. Evan leaned back. This isn't a trial, Marcus. Then why does it feel like a verdict? Marcus said. Silence followed. Karen resumed. We're here to find resolution. Evan has expressed concern about team cohesion. Have you reviewed my documentation? Marcus asked. Karen hesitated. We've reviewed relevant materials. I submitted emails, feedback contradictions, reassignments. Karen nodded. We didn't find policy violations. Marcus felt the familiar hollow open in his chest. Because the policy doesn't name what this is. Evan smiled. Careful. Marcus ignored him. When feedback shifts from measurable outcomes to vague descriptors like tone, that's not neutral. Karen folded her hands tighter. Marcus, accusations of bias are serious. So is discrimination, he replied. Evan laughed, sharper this time. This is exactly what I mean. Playing the race card. Marcus's vision narrowed. I'm describing my experience. And framing yourself as a victim, Evan said. Karen interjected quickly. Evan, let's avoid loaded language. But that's what this is, Evan insisted. He's defensive. He doesn't take feedback. Marcus looked at Karen. Is this how feedback is usually delivered? Karen didn't answer immediately. Evan is a valued leader. His record speaks for itself. Marcus nodded slowly. So does mine. Karen sighed. Marcus, what outcome are you seeking? He took a breath. Accountability, acknowledgement, fair evaluation. Evan scoffed. Unrealistic. Karen turned to Marcus. Given the circumstances, we recommend mediation and communication training. Marcus blinked. Training for what? For managing perceptions, she said gently. Of myself. Marcus asked. Yes, Karen replied. Marcus leaned back, a bitter laugh escaping before he could stop it. So the solution to bias is to make me smaller. That's not what we're saying, Karen said. It's exactly what you're saying, Marcus replied. Without saying it. Evan stood. This is going nowhere. Karen looked between them. Marcus, we encourage you to reflect on this feedback. I have, Marcus said, for years. Karen closed her notebook. We'll document today's discussion. Marcus stood as well. Please include that I disputed these claims. We will, she said. Evan grabbed his jacket. I hope you make the right choice. Marcus met his gaze. I hope the record does. Evan smirked and left. Karen gathered her things. Marcus, off the record, she said quietly. Sometimes it's better to move on. Marcus looked at the poster again. We value integrity. Sometimes, he replied. Moving on is how this survives. Karen didn't respond. Marcus walked out into the hallway. Doors closing softly behind him. The carpet muffled his steps, but not the weight settling in his chest. He pulled out his phone and typed a single message to Daniel Carter. They closed ranks. The reply came seconds later. That tells us everything. Marcus exhaled long and slow. The doors had closed. Now the pressure would build. Marcus didn't sleep. He lay on his couch staring at the ceiling fan as it traced slow circles through the dark, each rotation pulling the day apart and putting it back together wrong. HR's voices echoed in fragments: perception, cohesion, training, words designed to sound neutral while doing harm quietly. At 5:42 a.m., his phone buzzed. Daniel Carter. Marcus answered immediately. I'm awake. I figured, Daniel said. His voice was low, controlled. Tell me everything. Start from when you walked into that room. Marcus sat up, rubbing his face. They let Evan lead. HR followed. I was the problem before I spoke. Daniel hummed once. That tracks. They reframed everything, Marcus continued. Aggressive, disruptive. I asked for examples. They hid behind confidentiality. Classic insulation, Daniel said. Protect the asset. Marcus swallowed. They offer me communication training. Daniel laughed once, without humor. Translation, behave smaller. That's what it felt like. Because that's what it was. Daniel paused. Did they document the meeting? Yes. Good, Daniel said. We'll want that record. Marcus stared at the dim window. What happens now? Daniel didn't answer right away. Before I tell you, I need to ask something. Okay, are you willing to lose this job? The question landed heavy. Marcus closed his eyes. I might lose it anyway. That's not an answer, Daniel said gently. This path has consequences. Retaliation, isolation, delays. Marcus pictured Evan's smile, Karen's careful neutrality. I already feel isolated. Daniel exhaled. Then let's talk strategy. They met later that morning at a quiet cafe on the edge of downtown. Daniel arrived early. Gray suit, no tie, legal calm etched into every movement. He shook Marcus's hand firmly. You look like hell, Daniel said. Marcus almost smiled. I feel worse. They sat. Daniel opened a slim folder. You did the right thing documenting. Your paper trail is solid. But HR dismissed it. Internally, Daniel corrected. Externally is another matter. Marcus leaned forward. What does that mean? It means this doesn't start as a lawsuit, Daniel said. It starts as a compliance review. Marcus frowned. Through the company? Through regulators, Daniel replied. Anonymous whistleblower report. Marcus's pulse quickened. Anonymous? At first, Daniel said, it triggers an obligation. They can't ignore it. Marcus hesitated. Evan will know it's me. Eventually, Daniel said, but timing matters. The server approached. Neither ordered. Daniel continued. Your company receives federal contracts. That brings oversight. Marcus hadn't known that. So this isn't just HR. No, Daniel said. This is risk management at a level they respect. Marcus leaned back. What do you need from me? Everything, Daniel said. Emails, calendars, performance metrics, names of witnesses. Witnesses who won't speak, Marcus said. Daniel nodded. Silence is also evidence. Marcus exhaled. What about retaliation? Daniel's eyes sharpened. It's illegal. That's never stopped anyone. No, Daniel agreed, but it changes how they move. Marcus watched Daniel carefully. Why are you helping me? Daniel didn't flinch. Because I've seen this end badly when no one intervenes. For who? Marcus asked. Daniel met his gaze. Both sides. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay. Daniel slid a card across the table. This is a secure line. Use it only for this. Marcus pocketed it. What's the call? Daniel leaned in. Today you filed a report. Marcus's chest tightened. Today? Momentum matters, Daniel said. And so does documentation freshness. Marcus hesitated. Once it's filed. There's no undo, Daniel finished. Marcus looked out the window. Cars moved past, unaware. Do you want to stop? Daniel asked. Marcus shook his head. No. Daniel nodded. Good. They stood. Daniel paused. One more thing. What? This will get ugly before it gets better, Daniel said. They will question your motives. Your character. Marcus swallowed. They already are. Daniel placed a hand briefly on his shoulder. Then you're ahead. That afternoon, Marcus sat at his kitchen table. His laptop glowed. The whistleblower portal was open, sterile, and impersonal. He typed slowly, deliberately. Dates, names, quotes, attachments. His finger hovered over submit. He thought of Naomi, of Evan's smile, of the poster that said integrity. He clicked. The confirmation page appeared. Your report has been received. Marcus leaned back, heart racing. His phone rang immediately. Unknown number. He answered. This is compliance. A voice said, we need to ask you a few questions. Marcus closed his eyes. The call had been made, and it was already echoing. The email arrived at 8:03 a.m. Flag high priority. Sender masked behind compliance. Address Marcus didn't recognize. The subject line was neutral to the point of menace. Request for cooperation. He read it twice before breathing. They were moving faster than he expected. By 10, the office buzzed with new energy. Tighter smiles, lowered voices. Doors closing where they usually stayed open. Marcus felt it before anyone said a word. Something had shifted. He walked to his desk, nodding at co-workers who suddenly seemed fascinated by their screens. At 10:17, Evan appeared. He stopped beside Marcus's desk, close enough that Marcus could smell his cologne, sharp and deliberate. "Got a minute?" Evan asked, voice light. Marcus didn't look up. "Is this about work?" Evan smiled. "Everything's about work." They stepped into a small huddle room. Evan closed the door gently, as if practicing restraint. "So," Evan said, folding his arms. "Interesting morning." Marcus met his gaze. "Is there a point?" Evan's smile thinned. "Compliance is asking questions." "That tends to happen," Marcus replied, "when concerns are raised." Evan laughed softly. "You think you're clever." "I think I documented facts," Marcus said. Evan stepped closer. "You really want to do this?" "I already am." Evan's eyes hardened. "Do you have any idea what you're risking?" "Yes," Marcus said. "My silence." Evan scoffed. "You're not a martyr." "I never said I was." Evan leaned in. "This won't end how you think." Marcus held his ground. "Neither will this company if it keeps pretending nothing's wrong." Evan straightened, smoothing his jacket. "Watch yourself." He left without another word. An hour later, Marcus was summoned, again, to HR. This time, Karen wasn't alone. Two unfamiliar faces sat beside her, expressions unreadable. "Marcus," Karen said, too warmly, "thank you for your cooperation." Saturday, I didn't have a choice." One of the strangers spoke. "We're conducting a preliminary review." "Preliminary," Marcus echoed. Karen nodded. "This is standard." "Is retaliation standard?" Marcus asked. Karen stiffened. "What do you mean?" "Evan confronted me this morning." Karen's pen paused. "What did he say?" Marcus recounted the exchange calmly. "Precisely." The stranger typed without looking up. Karen cleared her throat. "We'll note that." "You should," Marcus said, "because it won't be the last time." The meeting ended with polite thanks and no assurances. When Marcus returned to his desk, his calendar had been wiped clean. Meetings removed, access revoked. He stared at the screen. "So this is how," he murmured. A co-worker, Lena, hovered nearby. "Hey," she whispered. "Are you okay?" Marcus looked at her, surprised. "I don't know." She hesitated. "For what it's worth, I saw some things." His heart skipped. "Would you be willing to share?" Lena glanced around. "Not here." That night, Marcus met Daniel again. He relayed everything. The confrontation, the access removal, Lena's hesitation. Daniel nodded. Textbook retaliation. "Can we prove it?" "We can document it," Daniel said. "That's enough for now." Marcus rubbed his temples. "They're freezing me out." Daniel leaned back. "That's pressure. They want you to crack." "I won't," Marcus said. "I know," Daniel replied. "But resilience doesn't mean invulnerability." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "What happens next?" "Interviews," Daniel said. "Requests, delays." "And Evan," Daniel's mouth tightened. "He's already nervous." As if summoned, Marcus's phone buzzed. An internal memo circulated company-wide. "We are committed to an inclusive workplace and are reviewing recent concerns. No names, no accountability, just language. They're controlling the narrative," Marcus said. "For now," Daniel replied. The next week blurred into tension. Marcus worked without access, watched without acknowledgement. Compliance called twice more. Lena finally spoke, careful, measured, confirming what Marcus already knew. Then, on Friday afternoon, the rumor broke. Evan had been placed on temporary leave. The office erupted in whispers. Marcus stayed still, pulse racing. His phone buzzed Naomi. "I heard." He typed back, "It's happening." An email followed, brief and formal. pending investigation outcomes. Leadership adjustments are underway. Marcus leaned back, exhaustion washing over him. This wasn't victory. It was exposure, raw, uncomfortable, irreversible. Across the floor, Karen avoided his gaze. Marcus packed up slowly, aware of eyes on his back. Outside, the air felt different. Lighter, sharper. His phone buzzed again. "Daniel, this is just a beginning," Daniel said. Marcus closed his eyes. "I know, but you held," Daniel continued. "That matters." Marcus looked up at the building, glass reflecting his own tired face. Exposure didn't heal the wound, but it stopped the bleeding. And somewhere inside, that felt like the first real consequence. The leak didn't arrive with sirens or breaking news banners. It crept in quietly, the way truth sometimes does when it's been waiting for permission. Marcus noticed it first in the break room, where two analysts stopped talking when he entered. Their phones were out, screens glowing, faces tight. By noon, his inbox filled with messages that said nothing and meant everything. "Thinking of you. Rough week. Hope you're okay." He opened his browser and found the article. No names in the headline, just a phrase that made his stomach drop. Federal review launched into workplace bias at major firm. The piece was clinical, sourced to documents obtained, careful with language but sharp in implication. It cited patterns. It quoted internal communications without attribution. It referenced leadership placed on leave pending investigation. Marcus closed the tab and leaned back. The office hummed around him, but it felt distant, like sound underwater. His phone rang. "Daniel." "It's out," Marcus said. "Yes," Daniel replied. "And it's accurate." Marcus rubbed his palms together. "They said anonymous." "They said confidential," Daniel corrected. "That's not the same." Marcus swallowed. "What happens now?" "Now," Daniel said, "it becomes a public record." By the afternoon, the company issued a statement, carefully worded, expressing concern, affirming values, promising cooperation. Marcus read it twice and felt nothing. Karen passed his desk without stopping. Her heels clicked faster than usual. An hour later, compliance requested another call. Two voices this time, measured and formal. "We're expanding the scope," one said. "Additional interviews. Additional documentation." Marcus nodded, though they couldn't see him. "Understood. We want to assure you," the other added, "that retaliation is prohibited." Marcus almost laughed. "Then you should document what's already happened." There was a pause. "We are," the voice said. After the call, Lena appeared again, eyes bright with nerves. "Did you see it?" "I did," Marcus said. She exhaled. "People are talking." "They always were," Marcus replied. "Just quietly." Lena hesitated. "I gave them my statement." Marcus looked at her, surprised. "Thank you." She shrugged. "I couldn't keep pretending." That night, Marcus went home to Naomi's apartment. The television was on, volume low. A local segment ran beneath the anchor's calm delivery. Sources confirmed multiple complaints. Naomi muted it. "You okay?" "I don't know how to be," Marcus said honestly. She sat beside him. "You don't have performed strength." He nodded, throat tight. His phone buzzed again. A former colleague texted, "I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner." Marcus stared at the words. He didn't reply. The next morning, Evan's name was everywhere. Not accused directly, but implied, connected, suspended between certainty and denial. Marcus avoided looking too long. At work, executives held an all-hands meeting. The CEO spoke of culture, of listening, of commitment. Marcus watched faces on the screen, concerned, earnest, careful. No one said his name. Afterward, a manager pulled him aside. "This must be difficult." Marcus nodded. "It is." The manager lowered his voice. "You should consider taking leave." Marcus looked at him. "Is that advice or instruction?" The manager smiled thinly. "Concern." Marcus returned to his desk and opened a blank document. He typed dates, facts, his own reactions. He didn't trust memory anymore, only records. By Friday, a second article dropped, this one sharper. Citing oversight bodies, mentioning systemic patterns. Marcus read it alone, hands shaking. Daniel called that evening. They're circling. Who? Marcus asked. Everyone, Daniel said. Regulators, media, board members. Marcus sank onto his couch. I didn't want this to be public. I know, Daniel said, but sunlight isn't polite. Marcus closed his eyes. What about me? There will be fallout, Daniel replied. People will choose sides. And the truth? Marcus asked. Daniel paused. The truth doesn't protect you, but it lasts. Marcus ended the call and sat in silence. Outside, the city moved on. His phone buzzed again. A message from Karen. Finally, if you'd like to discuss next steps, my door is open. Marcus stared at the screen. He thought of the poster, of the closed doors, of the weeks of quiet dismissal. He typed back slowly. Please include compliance. The reply came minutes later. Understood. Marcus set the phone down. He felt exposed, stripped of privacy and illusion. But beneath the fear was something steadier than before. He had been entered into the record, and records, once written, could not be erased, only reckoned with. The story was no longer contained. It was moving, and everyone could see it now. By Monday, the office felt like a pressure cooker. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and tension, a combination that Marcus found nauseating. Hallways that had once been casual thoroughfares now resembled stages. Everyone moved with calculated caution, whispering behind hands, glancing at screens like the walls themselves were listening. Marcus's inbox was flooded. Messages from lawyers, compliance officers, and anonymous tips about Evan's missteps. One from a regulator requested a detailed timeline of meetings and communications. He felt the weight of every word he typed. Each email could tip the balance. Each timestamp could become evidence. He glanced at the empty chair across from him. Evan's workstation now sterile. No personal photos, no scattered pens, nothing. The office had swept away his presence like dirt. Marcus's pulse quickened. Justice didn't feel like celebration. It felt like careful observation, anticipation, and the subtle thrill of witnessing accountability finally arrive. Later that morning, the news broke formally. The company announced Evan Whitmore's suspension pending full investigation. The email was precise, neutral, but the impact ricocheted through the office. Marcus watched as whispers turned to murmurs, murmurs to cautious smiles, and the weight of fear in colleagues' eyes shifted into relief. Karen passed Marcus's desk, her expression unreadable. Compliance requested an immediate debrief, she said softly. They're starting interviews with leadership. Marcus nodded. Of course. Hours later, he found himself in a small conference room with a panel of compliance officers, legal counsel, and one of the company's senior directors. They asked questions, reviewed emails, scrutinized records. Marcus answered calmly, factually, leaving emotion in check. He didn't embellish, didn't guess, didn't offer opinion, only truth. When he finished, one officer leaned forward. Your documentation is thorough. It's rare to have this level of clarity at this stage. Marcus nodded slowly. I wanted to be precise, so no one could misrepresent it. That's evident, the officer replied. You've given us a clear path. Marcus left the room and walked the halls that had once been suffocating. Colleagues avoided his gaze at first, but gradually some nodded, smiled, or whispered thanks. Lena caught his eye near the break room. She mouthed, good job. He nodded once quietly. By mid-afternoon, HR held a meeting to address the entire staff. The CEO spoke cautiously, acknowledging the investigation and promising transparency. The message was measured. No names, no blame, only process. But everyone knew Evan's power, carefully curated over years, was unraveling. Marcus returned to his desk. His phone buzzed. Daniel Carter. They're responding faster than expected, Daniel said. Evan's position is tenuous. Marcus exhaled slowly. I never imagined it would feel like this. Like what? Daniel asked. Not triumphant, Marcus admitted. Just real, heavy, consequential. That's the cost, Daniel said. The person accountable doesn't vanish overnight. People do. Processes take time. Marcus hung up and leaned back. He glanced around. The office was quieter than usual. The blinds cast long, angular shadows across empty desks. He realized he didn't hate Evan anymore. He felt something sharper, a recognition of how long the abuse had persisted and how much courage it had taken simply to endure. That evening, as he gathered his things, Karen appeared at his cubicle. "Marcus," she said softly, almost reluctantly. "Compliance wanted me to convey. Your professionalism has been noted." Marcus tilted his head. "Thank you. You should know," she added. "People are talking. Some regret not speaking up sooner." He nodded. "I notice." The next morning, word came down. Evan Whitmore would face formal disciplinary action, including termination if the investigation confirmed the initial findings. The office whispered and checked screens obsessively. Marcus watched from his desk, quiet, steady, feeling a mixture of vindication and exhaustion. Justice wasn't performance. It was an inevitability achieved through persistence, patience, and documentation. By the end of the week, Evan's office had been cleared. His name vanished from the internal directory. Policies were being reviewed. Leadership teams were reshuffled. Marcus walked past the empty space, noting the silence that replaced years of arrogance. At home that night, Marcus sat with Naomi. "It's done," he said quietly. "For now," she corrected. "But you made it happen." Marcus stared at her. "It feels incomplete." "Incomplete is okay," Naomi said. "Justice is never simple. But it's real this time." He nodded, letting the truth settle in. Evan's reign had ended. The system, often blind or biased, had been forced to act. The cost of Marcus had been isolation, stress, and constant vigilance. But the outcome, visible, undeniable, public, was validation. The phone buzzed again. A message from Daniel. "Good work. Step carefully now. The ripple is just beginning." Marcus set it down. Outside, the city lights flickered. He imagined Evan, confident one week, suspended the next. He imagined colleagues speaking out, hesitating, then finding courage. He imagined himself, weary but steady, witnessing the fallout without celebrating cruelty, only the return of accountability. Marcus closed his eyes. He hadn't won a battle against chance or chaos. He had simply held the line, forced the system to reckon with its own failures. Fallout didn't feel like triumph. It felt like survival, honesty, and the quiet weight of truth finally recognized. And that recognition, he realized, would ripple far beyond the empty office, touching everyone who had once stayed silent. The office felt different after fallout. The hum of computers, once oppressive, now seemed neutral. Colleagues moved with cautious relief, some avoiding eye contact, others offering quiet nods. Marcus noticed the subtle shifts. The way meetings were no longer dominated by fear, the way suggestions were treated with consideration rather than dismissal. But for him, the changes were almost imperceptible. The war had been won, but the scars remained. Marcus sat at his desk, staring at the blank spreadsheet in front of him. Numbers didn't matter anymore. The months of careful documentation, of whispered conversations and guarded emails had all led here. Yet the cost was visible in ways the public record couldn't capture. The sleepless nights, the heart-pounding anxiety before every meeting, the constant self-monitoring. It all left its mark. He recalled the tense mornings when Evan would appear, towering and assured, smirks sharp as knives. He remembered Karen's neutral smiles, polished but hollow, and the chilling sense that no one would intervene. That quiet isolation had been crushing. Marcus realized he had emerged not unscathed, but hardened, with a clarity shaped by endurance. Naomi visited one evening, tea in hand. She sat beside him without speaking at first, letting silence fill the room. Marcus exhaled, feeling the tension slowly ebb. "You did it," she said finally. "They can't erase this." "I didn't just do it," he replied. "I survived it. That's different." Naomi nodded. "And the rest of them, your co-workers? Some will remember, some won't, but you've shown it's possible to push back." Marcus considered that. The ripple effects had already begun. Lena had become bolder, speaking in meetings without hesitation. Other colleagues had quietly submitted clarifying statements during the investigation. Some had reached out to thank him privately, acknowledging that they'd fear retaliation if they'd acted sooner. But not everyone. Some walls remained silent. Some whispers were cautious, wary of what could happen next. Marcus understood that survival often demanded compromise, and he had seen the toll exacted. He had also learned that courage alone didn't guarantee safety. Systems had inertia, and change moved slowly. He sipped his tea and thought of Evan, the man who had wielded his power like a shield, who had dismissed talent, who had weaponized authority. Evan was gone, at least from the office, but his presence lingered in memories, in the anxiety he had seeded, in the culture he had shaped. Marcus realized the personal victory was intertwined with a loss of innocence. He no longer believed that effort alone would ensure fairness. Daniel called that evening voice steady. Evan's career will not recover. The board is taking steps. You forced accountability. Marcus nodded, even though Daniel couldn't see him. And the cost? You bear it, Daniel said. But history will remember who acted correctly, not just who succeeded. Marcus placed the phone down. He thought about the fatigue, the stress, the quiet isolation that had shadowed him for months. He thought about the night spent reviewing emails, labeling evidence, and meticulously cross-checking every fact. That labor had been invisible to the world, yet essential. He glanced around the apartment. The city lights glimmered through the window, soft and distant. It occurred to him that the personal toll, the sleepless nights, the anxiety, the relentless pressure, was a kind of hidden debt, invisible yet real. The next morning at work, the office seemed smaller. The absence of Evan's domineering presence made space for clarity. Meetings were calmer, discussions more respectful, ideas considered on merit rather than dismissed with a smirk. Marcus felt a quiet satisfaction. It was not joy, not relief. It was recognition that the system, though imperfect, had been compelled to respond. Yet even as the air lightened, Marcus felt the residue of the struggle. He no longer moved through the office with naive optimism. Every interaction was filtered through lessons learned, vigilance, documentation, resilience. He had survived, yes, but the experience left its mark. It would shape his choices, his trust, his understanding of power and justice. Naomi stopped by again that evening. You look different, she said gently. Marcus leaned back, tired but resolute. I am. I survived, but I carry with me. And you should, Naomi said. It proves something important. What? He asked. That courage and truth matter, even when it's costly, she replied, even when it's personal. Marcus considered her words. The battle had ended, but the lessons remained. He had exposed abuse of power, survived institutional inertia, and compelled accountability. Yet the cost was measurable: lost peace, lingering anxiety, trust reshaped by experience. He understood now that justice carried weight beyond its visible outcomes. He looked at the folder labeled evidence, now archived on his hard drive, and realized it represented more than documentation. It represented his endurance, his careful, deliberate action against inequity. The apartment was quiet. Marcus let himself breathe deeply, acknowledging the cost, the fatigue, the victories, and the losses. He had survived, yes, but survival came with reflection, and reflection demanded honesty about what had been endured. Marcus leaned back, closing his eyes. Outside, the city continued to hum, indifferent yet alive. The struggle had been personal, the fallout profound, but the ripple had begun, and though the cost had been high, he understood it was the price of truth. The first morning after everything changed, Marcus re-arrived at the office and noticed it immediately. The quiet tension had lifted, replaced by cautious optimism. People still moved with awareness, glancing over their shoulders or whispering in corners, but the oppressive weight that Evan Whitmore had cast over the floor had finally lifted. It was subtle but unmistakable. Marcus felt in the air, the lightness in the way colleagues approached their work, and the way meetings ran without the constant undertone of fear. He walked past the empty corner where Evan's office had been, now cleared and sterile. No photos, no clutter, just a clean space waiting to be repurposed. Marcus felt a flicker of satisfaction, though it was tempered by the memories of months spent navigating hostility and institutional indifference. The silence of Evan's absence spoke louder than any announcement ever could. The man who had wielded authority like a weapon was gone, and yet the work of repairing the culture had only just begun. At his desk, Marcus opened a folder labeled evidence and ran his fingers over files. Each email, each note, each documented incident told a story of endurance, strategy, and resilience. The documentation had been meticulous because survival demanded it. But now, looking back, he saw it differently. It was proof not just of wrongdoing, but his ability to navigate and endure systemic abuse. His phone buzzed. A message from Lena. Morning check-in. Meeting at 10? He smiled faintly and typed back, "I'll be there." Lena was leading a project now, confident and assertive in ways that had been impossible under Evan's oversight. Her courage was a direct result of the ripple Marcus had set in motion, and he felt a quiet pride in that. The morning passed with a rhythm that felt both familiar and strange. Marcus attended meetings, contributed ideas, and noticed a subtle shift in his colleagues' reactions. Suggestions were heard, input considered seriously, and no one dominated the conversation with intimidation. Even Karen Holt, HR, who had once maintained her distance, approached Marcus with cautious acknowledgement. Professionalism noted, she said silently with a glance. No apologies, no reconciliations, just recognition that he had acted correctly and stood firm. Later, Daniel Carter called. Marcus answered, keeping his voice steady. "Everything is moving as planned?" "Yes," Daniel said. "Evan's termination is finalized. Compliance has documented everything. The system has responded." Marcus exhaled, letting the tension leave his shoulders. "And the cost?" he asked. "You bore it," Daniel replied. "But the impact, your persistence, your careful documentation, it has changed more than just your case." Marcus reflected on that. The ripple effect was evident. Colleagues more willing to speak, leadership more cautious, culture slowly shifting. Justice had arrived, not in dramatic gestures, but in methodical, deliberate consequences that ensured accountability. The system had been compelled to act, and Marcus had been the catalyst. By evening, the office was quieter. Marcus walked to the small balcony outside the building, looking over the city lights twinkling in the distance. The city moved on, oblivious to the battles fought inside these walls. Yet Marcus felt a sense of calm. The months of fear, sleepless nights, and meticulous record-keeping had culminated in a visible, undeniable outcome. He had endured scrutiny, retaliation, and isolation, and now he could finally breathe. He reflected on the personal cost, the anxiety that had shadowed every interaction, the constant vigilance, and emotional toll of standing against a powerful authority figure. It had changed him, yes, but it had also taught him the value of resilience, strategy, and careful action. The experience had hardened him, but it had also clarified what mattered: integrity, truth, and the courage to act. Naomi called later. "You look different," she said. Marcus smiled faintly. "I feel different. Not lighter, not free, but steady." "That's enough," she said. "You've done what most wouldn't dare." "I survived," Marcus admitted. "And that's something." Outside, the city lights blinked in rhythm with distant traffic. Inside, Marcus felt grounded. The office, the colleagues, and even Evan's absence no longer defined him. He had acted with clarity, perseverance, and courage. He had faced the system, endured exposure, and compelled justice to occur. As he sat back, he thought of the lessons he had learned. Systems could be challenged, authority could be held accountable, and truth, when documented and presented with care, could not be ignored. He understood that accountability carried consequences for both the perpetrator and the advocate, and that the emotional cost of courage was unavoidable. Yet, that cost was a price worth paying. His phone buzzed again. Another message from Lena. "Team lunch next week. Hope you can make it." Marcus smiled. It was a simple invitation, but it symbolized something profound: recognition, inclusion, and the restoration of trust. He wasn't just surviving. He was part of a team, a culture slowly learning to value fairness and integrity. He closed the folder labeled evidence and set aside. It had served its purpose, a testament to months of meticulous effort and unwavering resolve. The lessons were internalized, the scars acknowledged, and the victories, quiet though they were, felt real. Marcus stood, looking out over the city one last time. The lights blinked, steady and reassuring. The struggle had been immense, the cost real, and the process exhausting. But he had endured. He had acted, persisted, and remained unbroken. And in that realization, he understood the truth. He was still standing, Still standing meant more than survival. It meant courage, integrity, and the quiet assurance that truth and justice, though imperfect, could prevail. Marcus Reed had endured, had acted, had won, not in dramatic fanfare, but in steadfast resolve. And that, above all else, was enough. The weeks following Evan Whitmore's termination had brought a calm that Marcus hadn't expected. The office had shifted in ways subtle but undeniable. Meetings ran with deliberation instead of intimidation. Ideas were evaluated on merit, and a sense of cautious respect permeated the floor. The oppressive weight of fear had lifted, replaced by a quiet energy that encouraged participation rather than suppression. Marcus noticed it in colleagues' hesitant smiles, the careful but honest dialogue, and the newfound willingness to speak up without repercussion. Marcus had returned to a semblance of normalcy, though normal now carried a new dimension: vigilance. The months of scrutiny, meticulous documentation, and careful observation had reshaped his understanding of workplace dynamics. Every email, every meeting, every comment was now filtered through a lens of cautious awareness. Yet, this awareness no longer felt like a burden. It felt like armor forged by experience. One morning, as Marcus entered the office, Lena approached him with an easy smile. "Morning, Marcus. We're finalizing the quarterly strategy presentation. Want to give your input?" He nodded. "Of course. Let's see what we got." The meeting room was brighter than usual. Windows open, sunlight streaming across the table. Colleagues sat upright, attentive, contributing thoughtfully. There were no smirks, no dismissive gestures, no undercurrent of fear. Marcus felt a rare sense of collaboration. Ideas flowed, refined by discussion rather than stifled by hierarchy. After the session, he returned to his desk, scanning the messages in his inbox. There were congratulatory notes from colleagues who had quietly supported him, emails from compliance acknowledging his cooperation, and a calendar invitation from Daniel Carter for a debrief and reflection session. Marcus hesitated briefly before accepting. He wanted to mark the culmination of months of struggle, to reflect on what had been won and what had been endured. At lunch, Marcus and Naomi met at a small cafe. Naomi sipped her tea, eyes bright. "You look lighter," she said. "Or maybe just steady." "I feel steady," Marcus admitted, "but I also feel the weight of everything it costs." Naomi nodded. "You did more than survive. You changed the landscape for everyone in that office. That ripple will be felt long after this moment." Marcus considered that. Colleagues like Lena now spoke confidently. HR processes had been reevaluated. Leadership had been reminded that power carried responsibility, and he had endured the stress, scrutiny, and isolation necessary to ensure accountability. The cost had been high, but the result was tangible. Back at the office, Marcus found a quiet moment on the balcony. The city stretched beneath him, alive with movement, indifferent yet persistent. He allowed himself to reflect on the months of tension, anxiety, and careful documentation. Each sleepless night, every careful conversation, and every recorded email had contributed to this moment, a moment where truth had prevailed over intimidation and persistence had forced accountability. His phone buzzed. Daniel Carter. "Marcus, you've done more than most could manage," Daniel said. "The system has responded. Justice, imperfect as it is, has been achieved." Marcus smiled faintly. "It doesn't feel like victory." "It's not supposed to," Daniel replied. "It's about integrity, endurance, and affecting change. That's what counts." Marcus let the words settle. He realized that the true measure of success was not a celebration or applause. It was a subtle transformation he could observe in the office, the courage it inspired in others, and the accountability now impossible to ignore. That afternoon, Karen Holt stopped by his desk. "Marcus," she said quietly, "the leadership team asked me to convey appreciation for your professionalism and cooperation throughout this process. Your actions made a difference." Marcus nodded, a mixture of acknowledgement and residual tension in his chest. "Thank you." She hesitated. "Not everyone has the resilience to do what you did." Marcus offered a faint smile. "I had no choice if I wanted things to change." As evening approached, Marcus returned home and reflected on the months behind him. The emotional cost, the isolation, and the anxiety had left their marks. Yet, he had acted with deliberate clarity and resilience. He had exposed abuse of power, endured retaliation, and compelled justice. And in doing so, he had not only protected himself, but opened a pathway for others. He sat at his desk, opening the journal he had maintained throughout the ordeal. Page after page detailed incidents, reflections, and emotions. Fear, frustration, anger, determination, and resolve. Now, those pages told a story of endurance, strategy, and integrity. They were a testament not just to survival, but to action, courage, and effecting systemic change. Marcus set the journal aside and stepped onto the balcony once more. The city below moved with continuity and indifference, yet Marcus felt a profound connection to it. The struggle had been personal, but its consequences were far-reaching. Change, though incremental and imperfect, was now tangible. He reflected on the months of confrontation, exposure, and scrutiny. He had endured the fallout, maintained integrity, and compelled accountability. The office, his colleagues, and the culture around him had shifted. The cost had been real, and the scars remained, but so had resilience, awareness, and hope. Marcus leaned against the railing, breathing deeply. He realized that standing firm had not just been about surviving or winning. It had been about establishing truth, preserving dignity, and showing that courage, even when costly, could compel meaningful change. The city lights flickered against the darkening sky, a steady rhythm. Marcus knew there would be challenges ahead, that vigilance would remain necessary, but he had proven to himself and others that integrity, persistence, and courage mattered. He was still standing, and beyond standing, he was ready for whatever came next.